Hi, everyone. Welcome to Rustle Podcast Season 2, which states I can and I do, where embark on an extraordinary journey of resilience, transformation, and inspiration. This season is not just a continuation of the previous one, it is a celebration of human spirit, potential, and we are here to introduce you to different varied stories that will awaken the spirit of possibility. Today, we are joined by someone who truly embodies the spirit of purpose and impact, Dr. Jo Puri. With close to 30 years of global experience in climate finance, rural transformation, and international development, Ms. Jyotsna has served in leadership roles across some of the world's most influential institutions, including IFAD, the Green Climate Fund, and 3IE, from steering development strategies in over 80 countries to championing evidence driven policy and pioneering tools like resilience credits. Jo, as she is popularly known as, has always stood at the intersection of innovation, equity, and climate action. Her work has shaped global thinking around financing for adaptation, land rights, and rural investments. Jo, a very warm welcome to Russell Podcast.
Thank you for having me here. And actually, I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, I can. Along with us, we have Rahul Suri, who is the founder of Rustle Podcast, and he's a young entrepreneur who started this journey not only to enlighten young minds, but also to showcase how different stories have the possibility and the potential to motivate and sow that seed of intrigue and inspiration so that the youngsters can achieve their goals and possibly set smart goals. So, starting off on this brilliant note, on this sunny evening in India, Jo, the first question that I have for you is related to agriculture and related to your field of expertise. Given the challenges of engaging youth in agriculture, what approaches has IFAD found effective in making the sector more appealing to the younger generations?
Thank you, Nakshi, for that question. Great question. So, just to also let you know, I worked for IFAD from 2020 November to the end of February 2025, and I'm currently actually in a period of transition. But obviously, very happy to be talking about IFAD and its experiences and the work that I did there. So, I think you pointed to one of the biggest challenges within agriculture, which is realizing that many youth do not like to be engaged with agriculture, especially because they don't see it as inspiring, motivating, cool, sexy, and all of the rest. And it's far easier to then be engaged in what is called the tertiary or the service industry. I think one of the key things that we really try to push through at IFAD is the focus on creating jobs and using high tech and precision agriculture. So high tech, precision agriculture, it can be very innovative. It can also be very exciting. And it also means that young people can really show their dynamism and their commitment to both increased agricultural productivity and therefore food, but also the environment. And I think engaging with the environment is something that really inspires the young. We've also found that it's a really important way, the focus on agricultural within agriculture on technological tools like AI, like precision agriculture, like using large language models to understand how we can combine, say, photography, highly disaggregated data, survey data, to really understand the potential of the earth to be highly productive can be really motivating for young people to also see the fruits of their labor. So, jobs, the engagement with technology, and the engagement with the environment, these are the three aspects of agriculture that we really try to push through with the focus on agriculture within IFAD as well as elsewhere. Thanks.
That's nice. You mentioned certain terms like precision technology and how um, using the cutting edge knowledge and the kind of things that are available nowadays, it could be very, very inspiring and also luring for the young ones to opt for this kind of field. But I have done my master's in biotechnology, but as I've passed out that phase, of course, but then if suppose someone wants to work for IFAD, what is the actual, like it might sound like a very layman question, but then what is the course of action that one should do? Which subjects one should focus on? How should one approach IFAD, for an instance, to get enrolled there? Or how do we start working there?
The IFAD.
Yes. Like what is the step-by-step procedure?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not
No,
not
great
my
question again. And
not
I get
yeah. I don't mean to say that
no.
somebody would directly get want to be associated with IFAD, but like gradual progression. Like one, if suppose I aim to work and collaborate with IFAD one day, what would I want to do with my life right now, and how would I structure it?
And especially great question primarily because the world is changing so fast and disciplines are changing so fast. And what we thought would be really a high value add discipline in terms of adding to the overall knowledge and technical base of the world in, say, in the 1990s is dramatically different now as we are in the 2020s, right? So I get asked this question a lot as well when I teach. So I teach at Columbia University at the School of International and Public Affairs. And when I address students and also during my many other seminars, I get asked this question, what should you be focusing on if you are really keen to be looking at international development as a career option going forward? And there are two things that I really emphasize, and I think I want to try and do that here as well. First, there is no substitute for really having very deep core skills in a certain discipline, right? We are in the age of AI and ChatGPT. You can basically, if you wanted to get, superficial knowledge about anything, you can get onto ChatGPT or Google it and you can understand it. So, what is the value add that you can really bring to any profession, and especially to international development? It has to be a huge focus on having core skills, something that is really deep and that really adds value to understanding and implementing development assistance. I think what that leads to then is this. Phrase that I heard elsewhere, which I really believe in, which is you've got to train like a savage and create like an artist. So you have to train, train, train. You have to really have a deep understanding of any discipline that you really want to focus on. Is biotechnology, it is agriculture, whether it is finance, whether it is biology, whether it is chemistry. But you really need to have deep knowledge and you need to also focus your trajectory of learning on applying this continuously during your career trajectory in real world situations because it's good to have bookish knowledge, but what really makes you understand as to what can be truly transformational is when you start to apply these in the real world, because that's when you supplement your academic knowledge with experiential knowledge. And both of those experiences and both of those types of knowledge and insights are really critical. And then within this overall context that we are witnessing, where you have very quick algorithms that can synthesize information for you. I like to think that people should be focusing on a few disciplines. They should definitely be understanding data because even with ChatGPT and AI and large language models, it's really important to know as to what is true and what is not true. And the only way you actually get to know that is if you have a distinct understanding of what is good data, what is representative, how is it synthesized, what are good methods, and how can you synthesize evidence. So that's one. I think the second is really understanding human nature and behavior. So, behavioral science is the other discipline, along with psychology and neuroscience, that I really emphasize to students. Because while AI can give you a lot of information, it can't really make decisions for you. The ability to make decisions has to will continue to lie with human beings. And the best way that you can really take that knowledge and transform it into effective decision making is by knowing human nature. And that's why I think neuroscience, behavioral psychology, behavioral science, behavioral economics become the other disciplines that I really try and emphasize over and above getting core knowledge of any discipline that you want to train in. Thanks.
That's nice to know because yes, somewhere I think deep down we know that it is imperative for us to study human behavior because that helps us move forward, strengthening every aspect of our social being. But yes, definitely having core knowledge is another essential thing that you stressed upon. Now, taking it from there, from this very point, did you know right from the very start that you wanted to do what you're doing right now? Or did you have a shift in the career path, or did you have a plot twist in your story?
Twists. I don't think that any career trajectory is ever a straight line, and I think I'd be. And if you've heard from people that they had sort of already planned to get to the stage of their lives and their career 30 years ago, I think they would be. I think they would be. Washing the truth, so to speak. Because I think the one thing I like to tell young people as well is that what you can best train for and really plan for is your own commitment to high quality evidence, to high core technical strengths and persistence and hard work. I mean, those are the only three or four things that you can really commit to. After that, how your career trajectory pans out is both a function not just of yourself, but also of the changing world around you. So 30 years ago, I definitely did not know that I was going to be here. What I did know 30 years ago was that I really wanted to try and make a difference, however small, and my commitment to making a difference is continues to be tainted with a lot of humility because I also realize that it's hugely difficult to make a difference. But if I can make a difference even in a small way, that's a huge success. So when I started off actually at the World Bank, and I was
Mhm.
employed by the Department of Economics Research, and there I used my economic skills and analysis skills to understand the impacts of agricultural policy on deforestation, using data, using GIS, and also contributing to setting up the first GIS lab at the World Bank. And that was because I really wanted to see as to how I could apply the skills that I had learned during my PhD coursework to something that was real world. And since then, I don't think I've looked back. But there have been a lot of curveballs, so to speak. There were times when I thought I was going to go down the pathway of, just looking at evidence and staying on the evaluation side. And then after the Green Climate Fund tenure, I moved to operations and implementation because I really wanted to understand as to how we could do a lot of the organizational implementation on the ground and engage with countries in a successful way. And while evaluation gives you many insights and really good paradigms within which to analyze the success and failures of development assistance, I think, being on the side of operations and program design and delivery gives you very different insights in terms of how to engage with countries and with people on the ground and to build partnerships. And I was really committed to learning that part for myself as well.
Now that you have mentioned, like you obviously, like you mentioned, curveballs have been there for you as well. But since you have been changing domains and you have been changing jobs per se, this recent transition that's going to happen within a week when you're going to move into UNEP, I wanted to ask you, is there a skill that you are carrying forth from IFAD that you would like to carry it forth and use it when you have this new set of experiences in UNEP?
Definitely. So thanks for that, Inakshi. I think the key skill that I gained at IFAD, one is soft and one is hard. The soft one is building partnerships and also engaging with people within the institution to ensure that we are really, as a village, committed to bringing about the change on the ground and with countries that we want to. So that's the soft skill I think that was really important for me. And the hard skill, I think, is really in the context of finance. As you know, IFAD is an international fund, which means that it is both a UN organization as well as an international fund, and it has a credit rating. So it is highly rated by credit rating agencies, and it also is aspiring to borrow from the market. It also puts out what are called bonds that are put out with companies, individual companies called private placements. What that means is that you've really got to understand the context of international finance. And it was one of the key things that I really built up during my tenure at IFAD, along with my big and large commitment to evidence and impact, which I was carrying from before that, with my overall training in impact assessments, impact evaluation. I wanted to really combine that with the area of finance. And that also came through because I just finished the most recent flagship report on which I was the lead author at IFAD called the Rural Development Report 2025 that focuses on financing for rural transformation, and that will be released just before the Financing for Development Summit at Seville. And I think that the combination of commitment to impact on one side, as well as the commitment to understanding as to how international finance can truly transform development assistance, especially in today's world, very increasingly constrained financial support and increasing indebtedness will become really important. And I'm really quite thankful for that learning experience. I'm hoping very much to be able to take that to UNEP and to see as to how we can support countries, but also the international architecture, development architecture, and environmental and climate architecture to really see how we can reduce the dependence on critical donors, but also galvanize the world community to contribute to a larger extent in monetary terms to the overall environment and climate agenda.
That's nice. That's very interesting, actually. So many laurels up your hat. You mentioned about soft skill, about teamwork and collaboration, and then basically managing relationships within an institution. So, has there ever been a situation where you had to be at conflicting sides when it came to your leadership role?
Many. I think this is something that most leaders will tell you that, I think leadership does not lie in taking an idea and forcing it down people's throats. Leadership requires that you build a coalition of the willing, which is based on trust, on collegiality, on a single purpose, on building this ambition for what's called a moonshot. And that takes time. It requires building those informal and formal relationships and understanding as to what people's private and personal incentives are over and above the incentives that they have at work, which are usually illustrated by their KPIs or their key performance indicators, which is what their bosses are looking at. But very often people have their professional KPIs and their personal KPIs, and they really want to try. I think each one of us who comes in the development space has personal KPIs as well that we want to really achieve during our lives. And understanding as to what people's private and personal goals are is a really important way in which we put together these coalitions of the willing, because nobody can bring about change alone. And so while I might be committed to bringing on new sources of finance and new sources of new types of instruments like blended finance instruments and thinking about evidence and impact in a different way, if I don't take my team as well as my peers along in an institution, it doesn't work. So that's really very important, and I think an important skill for anyone in the development space to learn.
Wow, that's nice. That's very good to hear because we often, as youngsters, and especially the ones who are just entering this arena, they are not equipped to handle such soft skills, and it comes as a bombshell when they have to face and be in such a situation where they have to convince the people whom they are leading and executing their responsibilities to the fullest potential. It becomes a tough task. So, on that note, I'll ask you one very cheery question. What is the one thing on your resume that that nobody would expect to be? Have you done anything that you maybe not have utilized, or is there something that's not really known by your colleagues or peers? That's why I'm sticking to resume, nothing else.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. I think on my resume, the commitment. Well, I can, if you don't mind, I'll talk about two things. So one, which is on my resume and which, a few do know about, which is this focus on resilience credits and really building a market for investments in resilience, which is something that I think has been ignored in the overall climate and development space, and which I think brings together both of the key areas of focus in the international community, which is one, focus on climate and adaptation.
Hmm.
And second, really trying to understand as to how we can build a market for high quality evidence in the adaptation space. So resilience credits is really a way to think about investing in adaptation that leads to resilience, very much like you build carbon credits in the climate market. And that's something I'm very proud of. It's still very nascent, but I think could be a really key instrument to bring about a dramatic change in the climate space. And the UNFCCC, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is headquartered at Bonn, and many ministries, private sector entities have all picked up on it, and we're hoping to do something interesting with it. So that's one.
Oh,
I think
nice.
the second, which is an attribute which perhaps few people know about, is that I like to cycle and to hike, and which is not on my resume, but it gives me a huge amount of space to meditate, to think, to get perspective about a lot of the issues that we are witnessing as part of the world community, and to also believe in the power of the earth and power of nature.
That's so nice. Actually, my next question was going to be about something out of your resume, your hobbies and interests. But then now you mentioned cycling and hiking. Do these come as your therapies, like your go-to ventures when you are feeling a little low, or maybe you need that space to think and give your mind a rest?
So it's hugely helpful for me to have that. I think the other thing that really helps me, if I can't get away for a hike or a bike ride, is writing. So I like to write, and it really calms me. And as Emerson said, writing makes a perfect man, or in this case, a perfect woman. I'm not sure I'm perfect, but it definitely helps me a lot. So writing, whether for my own self or writing in the professional space, is a huge help for me.
So when you say writing, are we talking about the research papers or your contributions to academic content writing, or is it like do you write books? Have you written any books? I'm so sorry, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, so there are a few books that have been put out that I've worked on. So the first one was on climate change commitments and developing countries. Then we worked on a book on evaluation. We worked on several books related to evaluation that have come out. But I think The key, and I've written lots of papers as well, but I think the other part of the writing that I really enjoy is also that not fiction writing or and which is mostly for myself so far. So it hasn't been put out in the public domain.
That's so interesting. I am myself an author, but I wanted to write research papers once upon a time, but like I mentioned, I've done my master's in biotechnology, but I'm teaching English. So I that's why all those questions, related to curveballs and the twists, somewhere I think I was seeking some sort of validation that okay, there are people in the world who have changed course of their action and they still are successful. But ma'am, that this would be the last one for this podcast, I promise. So you mentioned about your writings on climate change. Now, this one is just like an impromptu question because this topic has come up. I want to know, like, what are the key factors that determine the success of climate-related initiatives that everyone around the world is taking these days, especially in developing countries?
The key factor that really determines as to whether climate-related initiatives are successful or not are really related to incentives. Do people have the incentive or not to take on individual actions so that they are able to achieve a global good? I think this has been both the failure as well as the success of the climate world, where when entities, organizations, international agreements have built the incentive for individual agents to work in a certain way and all together, that has led to a lot of success. If you look at international treaties like the Montreal Protocol, that has led to success. Even the Paris Agreement, even though we are seeing a lot of outages in it right now, the Paris Agreement was really trying to align a lot of the incentives that we're witnessing for developed and developing countries to come together and to really work together. Having said that, I think it's also been the failure of of our community to not adequately focus on incentives when they're thinking about setting up new agreements, when they're setting up new organizations like so the GCF was actually set up as a consequence of the Paris Agreement. And the agreement was that yes, you will have developing and developed countries to come and sit together on the board, half and half. I think arguably it has worked, but it required a lot of work and understanding to realize that developing and developed countries, developing are usually the recipients of a lot of the financing and developed are the contributors, but that they need to sit on the same table together as equals. That has then carried on to the Fund for Responding to Loss and Damage, FRLD. The same kind of board framework has been formulated. And I think that's really good because that means that the incentives of of the board of the organizations are quite aligned. But and we have numerous examples of where it has not worked, I think it has primarily been because we don't have sufficient incentives built on for people. So yeah, I think that incentives are really critical. Thanks.
Yeah, I think I also agree with this because it's not only at a larger level, but even if you go down to that grassroots level from right in the school, nothing works unless we offer incentives to people. And then even if, especially if it is a cause that's opting or that's aiming at a global change, we do require some sort of incentivization so that people just come together and realize that how even a small change can make a difference. So, what like when you were sent the invitation for Russell podcast, what came to you to your mind from the word Russell? Could you just give us a hint so that we are happy or we are satisfied with the name choice that we have taken?
Whistle sort of provokes a sense of a different kind of sound and making a difference, and a sort of a murmur that hopefully becomes larger and larger and amplifies to bring about a change. And so that's how what I thought of when I heard the name Russell Podcast, and I think that's what you guys do.
Yes, our aim is like that, but then you have actually, we are like happy Larrys here all because you just put it so aptly, and that was the purpose of choosing this word. But we were not sure if it's going to ring the same bell for everyone. Anyway, what's the one word that captures the essence of your journey with IFAD?
Economy. So I know it's two words, but understanding the political economy of organizations within organizations and understanding how decision making occurs and what makes things successful and not is really key. And that's what I would advocate for to anyone that undertakes this journey.
Thank you. If you could have a conversation with any woman change maker from history, who would it be?
Have a conversation with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a Supreme Court justice and grew from a very traditional family outfit and, went up to be one of the most successful justices in U.S. history. And she talks of her long challenges with both managing her professional and personal life, but also being immensely successful, really erudite, and being a loved person. And I think she'd be the person I'd want to talk to.
That's lovely. Last but not the least, I'm very, very grateful for you to gracing us with this presence of yours. And we were actually quite delighted when you sent your approval for this podcast session. And we were eagerly waiting for you to come in and then we would ask our questions. So we had a lovely time hosting you and knowing so many insights about finance, political economics, and so many different terms that I couldn't even fathom. And I think I'll have to go back and do my bit of research. But ma'am, thank you so much for being with us today. It was our pleasure, and we are really, really grateful for you to share your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much, Inakshi, and thank you so much, Rahul. Such a delight and such a privilege for me to be here. And I wish you both the very, very best.
Thank you so much. Have a
Bye.
nice time at you and ma'am. Wishing you all the
Thank you.
best, and we
Thank
do
you.
hope that we cross paths again.
I definitely hope we will. Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye
much,
for
ma'am.
now.
Bye bye.